So my name's Simon Western, I'm the Chief Executive of the Eco Leadership Institute, and our company is important because it addresses the key and vital questions of our time. We talk about organisations as ecosystems within ecosystems. So organisations are not hierarchical pyramids with boxes, they're organic ecosystems.
It encourages us to think about our interrelationships, our professional relationships, our individual connections, our own desires, our own wants, our own sort of needs, both professionally and indeed in terms of kind of a more deeper level of satisfaction in the work that we bring into the world, how we do that work, how we show up in our workplaces, how we show up for teams and how we show up for each other.
I have been thinking about what I call everyday spirituality. How do we reclaim that sense of spirit, however you interpret it, in our lives? So when Simon asked me to come to the Soul at Work, I leapt at it. I think it's important. I think that what I see in my work and here is people are yearning for connection.
And I came into contact with the Eco Leadership Institute about 2 years ago, and there's an overlap for me in exploring what does it mean to show up for this historical moment where we are, and the fact that that moment is us. And so there's a really sort of an inquiry into what does it mean to live in these times and how can we engage with that with meaning and intention.
I had the privilege to do an immersion in eco leadership some years ago with Simon, and I rested very interested and agreeing with the profound way that Simon thinks the leadership and the work in the administration. Of course, this arouses the question of the soul, and the soul, as it is normal, not very present in our life. Now it's possible to see that the soul is important in our work because we can have another perspective to see the ancient questions and problems.
We know that leaders have to think about themselves in the world, have to think about their own lives. If they get really stressed, if they get really kind of focused just on hitting goals and targets, they get demoralised and their teams get demoralised. So all our work is to try and bring soul into the workplace, and I do it through executive coaching, I do it through leadership programs.
I didn't actually come to try and go through some kind of introspective journey for myself, whereas that's actually probably the most important part, and that was probably what I needed most, was to think, hold on a second, forget about everybody else for a second, be a little bit selfish and think about, well, what are your principles, what's guiding you?
I have been learning more about where the soul in my work is. I am discovering that I have more of it than I had thought, and I'm learning something about what gets in the way of my accessing my soul or the spiritual aspects of my work.
One of the things that I found very interesting was the concept that there is a lot of friction in soul work. Soul work can actually produce friction and conflict, and I think a lot of times we feel like soul work is supposed to make people feel calmer or get rid of friction and even anger.
There's been something in the experience of really just witnessing and being with people and exploring each other's journeys and our differences, and it's definitely not a community of practitioners or people that I would normally be able to connect or engage with. Felt like we're really different, and yet being able to hold each other in that exploration was really meaningful.
But I loved the conversation we got into about hope. And what is hope, and how do we think about hope? And an idea that bubbled up that said that hope is the firm conviction that you're doing what should be the right thing for you to do, rather than this kind of vague, woolly, let's all anticipate a brighter, better future.
This is what I do in my life, really. I mean, the Eco Leadership Institute is set up to try and help leaders live a good life and create a good society, is what we say. We know that leaders have to think about themselves in the world, have to think about their own lives. Often the work is either soulless or soul destroying for people, and then you meet people within the workplaces who are filled with soul. And I think the question for our times is, how do we create organisations which are soulful, organisations that can be re-enchanted, because there's a lot of disenchantment out there, there's a lot of bad news out there, there's a lot of pressure out there, and we have to try and re-enchant organisations, and to do that we have to understand what it means to bring our souls to work.